Did you know that a tiny kingdom on Europe's edge created the very first global empire? Welcome to Animate the Past. Today, we uncover how Portugal, one of the smallest countries in Europe, created the largest empire in the world. But how did they do it? And why don't we hear about them anymore? In the 15th century, Portugal was a kingdom on a mission. While other European nations were fighting each other, they were busy exploring the world. They established trading posts all over the coast of Africa, Asia, and South America. And by the 16th century, their ships were sailing to India and China. They even explored the Brazilian jungle and mapped out the coast of Australia. But why doesn't anyone talk about them anymore? Well, as the other European powers grew, they started taking over Portugal's colonies, and by the 19th century, they had lost almost all of them. But for a while, Portugal had the most powerful navy in the world, and they used it to create the very first global empire. In the beginning, there were the Portuguese. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning. This is the first episode of our series on the great empires of the ancient world. And what better place to start than with the first modern empire, that of Portugal? The empire's origins lie in the early 1400s. Portugal had just finished centuries of fighting in the Reconquista, pushing out Muslim rulers from the Iberian Peninsula. With little land left to conquer at home, Portugal looked outward. In 1415, King John III captured the city of Ceuta in North Africa. This marked the first overseas possession of Portugal and the symbolic birth of its empire. The key figure in these early days was Prince Henry the Navigator. Although he rarely sailed himself, he sponsored countless voyages along Africa's coast. He built a school of navigation, advanced ship design with the nimble caravel, and encouraged sailors to push into the unknown Atlantic. In 1475, Henry set his sights on the mighty city of Ceuta. He assembled a fleet, and with 15 ships and 4,000 men, crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. The Portuguese took the city after a long siege, marking their first foray into overseas conquest. The empire's origins lie in the early 1400s. Portugal had just finished centuries of fighting in the Reconquista, pushing out Muslim rulers from the Iberian Peninsula. With little land left to conquer at home, Portugal looked outward. In 1415, King John I captured the city of Ceuta in North Africa. This marked the first overseas possession of Portugal and the symbolic birth of its empire. The key figure in these early days was Prince Henry the Navigator. Although he rarely sailed himself, he sponsored countless voyages along Africa's coast. He built a school of navigation, advanced ship design with the nimble caravel, and encouraged sailors to push into the unknown Atlantic. By the late 1400s, the Portuguese had begun exploring and colonizing the Madeira Islands and the Azores, using them as bases for further expeditions. Then, in 1488, Bartolomeu achieved a breakthrough by rounding the Cape of Good Hope, proving that Africa could be circled by sea. Just 10 years later, in 1498, Vasco da Gama reached India. For the first time in history, Europe had a direct sea route to Asia's spice markets. This moment changed world history forever. Portugal now held the keys to one of the richest trades on earth. Soon, Portuguese ambitions stretched even further. In 1500, Pedro Álvares Cabral reached Brazil, claiming it for Portugal. Meanwhile, across the Indian Ocean, Portugal established a chain of forts and colonies: Goa in India, Malacca in Southeast Asia, and strongholds along Africa's coasts. They even reached China, founding Macau, and traded with Japan. Lisbon transformed into a global hub. Ships unloaded spices, gold, silk, and exotic goods from every corner of the known world. Portugal, once a small kingdom, now commanded an empire spanning 4 continents. By the early 1500s, Portugal stood as the world's leading naval and trading power. Its explorers discovered new lands, its merchants profited from the spice trade, and its missionaries spread Christianity across Asia, Africa, and South America. The empire stretched further than any before it. linking the Atlantic and Indian Oceans into one continuous trade network. But this rapid rise carried hidden weaknesses. Portugal was a small nation with limited manpower. Governing and defending such a vast empire was extremely difficult. Rival European powers were eager to seize Portuguese wealth, and as the century wore on, the costs of maintaining a global empire proved too high. The empire would eventually be eclipsed by rivals like Spain and the Netherlands. The age of exploration was on, and by the early 1500s, Portugal had established itself as a major player with a vast empire stretching from the tip of Africa to the heart of Asia. But how did this empire fare against its European competitors? Let's find out. As Portugal's power grew, so did the envy of its European rivals, the Dutch, Spanish, and English. They coveted Portugal's hard-earned empire and saw opportunities to strike. The Dutch were the first to challenge Portugal. With a strong navy and a passion for trade, they targeted Portuguese ships and settlements in the Indian Ocean. Meanwhile, the Spanish focused on capturing key ports along the African coast, disrupting Portugal's trade routes. The English joined the fray, attacking Portuguese vessels and establishing their own trading posts in India. These attacks left Portugal weakened and vulnerable, desperate to protect its empire. 2. A house united. In 1580, Portugal faced a succession crisis. King Sebastian died without an heir, plunging the kingdom into turmoil. This opened the door for the Spanish Habsburg dynasty to take the throne, uniting the two kingdoms under King Philip II of Spain for 60 years. While this union brought some stability, it also drew the Portuguese colonies into Spain's complex and costly wars, draining resources and exposing them to enemy attacks. For example, during the Anglo-Portuguese War, English privateers plundered Portuguese settlements in the Americas and Asia. Additionally, the Dutch used the conflict as an opportunity to seize Portuguese territories. By the end of the 16th century, the Portuguese Empire was significantly diminished. 3. Rise of Asian powers. In the early 1600s, the Dutch East India Company, or VOC, took the fight against Portugal to the next level. The VOC, a powerful merchant and trading company chartered by the Dutch government, aimed to dominate Asian trade. It challenged Portugal's dominance in the spice trade and competed fiercely for control of key ports and resources. Over time, the Dutch captured many Portuguese-held territories in Asia, including the Molucca Islands, Taiwan, and large parts of Indonesia. Meanwhile, the English East India Company also expanded its influence in Asia, establishing trading posts and engaging in battles with both the Portuguese and Dutch. By the late 17th century, the Portuguese had lost much of their Asian empire to these European rivals, leaving them with only a few small enclaves. 4. The Jewel of Brazil. Despite these setbacks, one colony stood out as the jewel of the Portuguese crown, Brazil. Initially colonized in the 1530s, Brazil's vast territory offered a range of resources, from fertile lands for sugar plantations to gold mines. Later, coffee cultivation added another lucrative product to the colonial economy. As the empire's administrative center shifted to Brazil, Rio de Janeiro became a prominent symbol of Portugal's wealth and power. However, this wealth came at a cost. The Portuguese monarchy's focus on extracting resources from Brazil may have contributed to the colony's desire for independence. 5. Independence and last strongholds. In 1822, Brazil declared independence from Portugal, dealing a devastating blow to what was left of the Portuguese Empire. This event marked the beginning of the end for Portugal's colonial rule. Nevertheless, Portugal continued to hold on to several African territories, including Angola, Mozambique, and Guinea-Bissau, as well as the island colonies of Madeira and the Azores. Furthermore, Macau continued to thrive as a trading post until its return to Chinese control in 1999. These remnants of the empire became the last strongholds of a once vast and formidable empire. 6. The end of an era. The final chapter of the Portuguese Empire unfolded in the 20th century. Following the Carnation Revolution of 1974, which overthrew the dictatorship in Portugal, the country's African colonies gained independence. Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, São Tomé, and Príncipe all became independent nations by the end of the 1970s. With this, the nearly 600-year-old empire was reduced to a shadow of its former self, comprising only Macau and a handful of tiny islands. In 1999, Macau was returned to China, marking the official end of the Portuguese Empire. From its early exploration voyages to its colonial conquests in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, the Portuguese Empire left an enduring legacy on the world. Through its exploration and conquest, Portugal not only expanded its own power and wealth, but also opened up new trade routes and cultural exchanges between different regions of the world. The Age of Exploration was a pivotal moment in world history, and Portugal played a crucial role in shaping this era of discovery. Thank you for watching. What are your thoughts about the end of the Portuguese Empire? Please share your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more historical journeys. We have many more videos about ancient civilizations and historical events that will bring you back to the past. See you next time on our channel where history comes alive. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.